I brought you another Karpov game, as always, and today's topic is going to be development advantage. We are going to check the game from the very beginning. So, Seirawan was like a d4 player, but sometimes he also played knight f3 c4. So he was a very tough opponent for Karpov, and it was a Queen's Gambit Tartakover line. We are not checking this game as always from the opening point of view. Karpov played bishop b7, very solid line, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, castles, rook c1. The other main line is e3, and then b6, rook c1, b6, c takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and white played g3. Here the move would be e3, in my opinion. e3 is probably better, and this would be transposing to the line of the famous Fischer-Spassky World Championship match game. I think it was game 6. I'm not quite sure. I think it was game 6. You know, this famous line with bishop e6, queen a4. I think maybe Fischer was the first player who came up with this idea. Maybe not. I'm not quite sure. And rook c8, bishop b5, and here I think Spassky played a6, and d takes c5, b takes c5, castle short, and it's a very famous game. Fischer basically beats Spassky in the masterclass. Nowadays the engines screaming queen b7. So this line, this queen a4, queen a3 is not that strong as, of course, in Fischer's time. But Seirawan played g3. What do you think? What's wrong with this move? Of course, he wants to make like a fianchetto bishop. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what you said. In general, I completely agree with Seirawan, because most likely, I mean, in Tartakover the bishop sometimes lands on e6 as well. But let's say in case of bishop b7, if black is also making like a fianchetto bishop, g2 bishop is usually so much stronger than an e2 bishop. This is basically one of my principles I made whenever I make a course of hanging pawns. I think I also mentioned this in our one of our sessions when we were checking a Karpov game on hanging pawns. That in hanging pawns is so much more, so much better against an e2 bishop compared to a fianchetto, Catalan, whatever bishop on g2. So because of that, I fully agree with Seirawan that the bishop in like best case scenario would be better on g2 by a castle short, and yeah, white would be fine. White would be probably slightly better. Of course, black is trying to prevent that. How would you play now?
I think we need to focus our attention to the e2 pawn. So I would probably start with rook to e8. It's more flexible than bishop a6, for example.
Yeah, because what I always say, like if you have if your plan contains moves, always make start with the move you would probably make. So if you are not sure where would you develop the bishop, don't start with the bishop move. Start with the move you would make anyway. Exactly. Rook e8 is a very nice move. Yes, exactly. Rook e8 happened in the game. I mean, where do the rooks belong? Open and half open files. Exactly. And we are trying to create pressure on e2. Seirawan played rook c3 with the idea of
rook e3.
Yeah, rook e3. He would like to release the tension on the file, possibly just trading the rook down, and from that point the rook cannot really create any threats on e2, and then he can just play bishop g2 castle short. But what would happen in case of bishop g2? How would you play here? I mean, I think here we can still play bishop a6. It's still fine. In case of knight e5, we can play knight d7 here. That's the key move, because in case of bishop takes d5, we have knight takes c5. Bishop takes a8 is just losing by knight d3. Because because of the pin, and we just take the rook, take the bishop and piece up. He can do that. So d takes c5. Now queen takes c5, and yeah, I mean, obviously we cannot be worse here. Probably he goes back to f3. I mean, bishop c4 is probably no, it's not losing f. Maybe we can play queen e4. Bishop is hanging, rook is hanging, f3 we can take. Rook f1. This is way too messy to my taste. I don't know. But even if we just simply take on c4, take on b2, I mean, there is no way we are worse. Even we can include this tempo to play rook d8 first. Of course, this is very good. In case of bishop f3, again, worst case we take on b2. So lot of tempos white just wasted very early part of the game. Here, Karpov played a very logical developing move, knight e6. What's the point? In many cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, I mean, not the same, of course, it's better, but yeah, probably the idea is after rook e3 queen before the queen is defended, yeah?
Yes, exactly. And in general, what we are aiming for here?
Yeah.
What are we aiming for?
Probably here? c5.
Yeah, probably maybe. c5, exactly. And sometimes we would like to take with the knight, and we just simply, even if we lose d5 in a way after d takes c5, we just connected the rook. I mean, after developing the bishop, we connected the rooks. So that's why they always say first try to develop the minor pieces. Why? Because this is helping connecting your rooks. Seirawan made another interesting move. He played queen a4. Again, what just happened? He made another queen. He made another move, which was not a minor piece move. It was not a developing move. So again, he just wasted one tempo on something which didn't really help his development. What's the point of this move? What should we taking care of now? So that was a whole
rook e3 probably.
Yes, rook e3. Yes. So
of course.
Only way avoiding losing the rook is bishop e6, and after queen takes a6, we lost a piece. This was the point of queen a4. By that, actually, it has some prophylaxis, point of like queen a4. Of course, he didn't make this move just to develop the queen, because it has no point. Because of course, like Seirawan was like a world-class player. Of course, he was aware of the principles. He shouldn't develop the queen first over the minor pieces. But by this queen a4, he tried to slow c5 down. All right, how would you play now against queen a4?
What about the b5?
Sounds better.
And takes and probably rook b8, I think.
Yes, this is exactly what happened. b5, what a move. We had to stop rook e3 idea. This was the only way to properly deal with this queen on this diagonal, because it was attacking e8. Of course, we could probably play some, I don't know, rook d8 or bishop b7 as you said, but e3 is just too massive, and we play bishop g2 castle short, and long-term our structure is obviously worse. So yeah, this is how we deal with the queen on a4. Of course, he cannot take on b5 because of rook b8, and we just take on b2, and this is massive. So the last thing he should do is opening up files and then the position against his king in the middle. So of course he cannot do that. He's not only like opening up setting up b5, but also creating potential threats on e2. Of course, he cannot play queen takes b5. That's not it. He played queen a5. Actually, the move he should have made, it blew my mind, but this is what Engine said: queen d1. And surprisingly, white is not much worse here. Basically, how many tempos did he waste in the opening phase? He played rook c3, he played d3, he played queen a4, queen d1 back, and still not clear. Queen a5. What now? Now we managed to dodge this rook e3 threat, but of course we just created one weakness, not one weak pawn, and some weak squares around that. Also, c7 is weak now. Structurally speaking, we are definitely like we're not, you know.
Yeah.
Proving our.
Oh, probably it's queen e4.
Yes, exactly. For what to move, because now rook e3 or rook e3 is not really a move, and again, knight d2 is not possible. Just like here, queen e4 was running into knight d2 because this guy was hanging at the end.
Yep.
Once we captured the rook, but thanks to this b5, queen a5, now we have access to this move, because knight d2 we just simply take the rook. And there is one very important detail is after rook c1, this guy is hanging as well. So queen b1 actually is unstoppable right now. Seirawan found the only move. The only move was king d2. Because he had to deal with this check. And once we go queen b1, he will have access maybe to rook c2 or some other move which can protect e2. What now? Okay, this is an extremely difficult position, and Karpov here, he made only one mistake in the game, and this was a very position where he did that. But queen b1 obviously is a move. Queen b1 is one move, but now queen takes b5, and this becomes like extremely complicated. For example, bishop f5 is not good now because of bishop h3. Queen takes h1, bishop f5, and actually white is winning. White is exchanged down, but this knight is just going to fall. He protected e2, and basically there is not a single pawn we can attack. So yeah, bishop f5 is not very good. In case of c6, look at this. Bishop g. Great, because okay, again, I'm pretty sure Karpov didn't see anything of this. In case of c6, queen takes c6, and now bishop f5, because after bishop h3 there is this cheeky check which was not available while the queen was on b5. Okay, I told you this is crazy. And now bishop g2 only move. Now queen e4. In case of queen takes h1, he takes c6.
Queen c6 probably.
Yeah, that was the whole point. And bishop d7, bishop h1, bishop c6, rook c6. Again, white is exchanged down, but he has two pawns in exchange, and also this guy is weak. Knight is a little bit stupid. Yeah. Knight is coming to e5. Of course, I think white is pushing. So we probably have to go back to e4. I mean, basically, bishop g2 is a beautiful move, but basically it was an all-in move. So it's only moves all of a sudden, and all difficult only moves are not difficult moves. Sometimes are not that difficult once it's only move. So you have nothing else to do.
Yeah, logical.
Yeah, so queen e4, queen d3, and queen e7. Black is a very nice compensation, but this is not dominating. This is still very complicated, and white has a potential way to get away with the king. So this is not the line where we destroy. Queen b1 is not the move. Karpov played rook e6, which is a very logical move. He just tried to protect his rook, and in case of rook e3, then he will jump to b1. And in case of queen takes b5, he will have rook b8 and rook b6 as well. But this was wrong. This was wrong. The right move, imagine this, the right move was bishop f5. It's crazy. Because now queen takes a6. Now we have queen b1. You will see what was wrong with Karpov's idea. Now we go queen b1, and actually, after queen a3, we have b4, we have access to this move. And queen takes b4, rook b8. And this is why bishop f5 was so important, because in the game, Karpov's bishop was on c8, and in this position, he couldn't have access to rook b8. There was also queen c6, and now queen takes a2. Like, not even queen takes b2, queen takes a2. Like, because queen takes b2, rook c2, and queen takes a2, and I'm gonna be honest, it's not that easy to understand. We would like to push b4. Basically, b4 is a huge threat. b4, b3, and then queen takes b2. That rook c2 will not be available. Unbelievable. And we needed this queen takes a2 because rook c1 after b4. Let's say if we start with b4, rook c1 is a huge tempo. And queen b2 again, rook c2. It's crazy. Okay, bishop f5 was, but it was not. I think for a human being, even Magnus would never find bishop f5 or understand, the differences between queen b1 and bishop f5. So he played rook e6, and now Seirawan also made a mistake. He played b3. He tried to like not prevent, but he tried to be a little bit prophylactic here. But actually, rook e3 was working. It was unbelievable. Queen b1, queen e3. And now I think what they both missed is after b4, yes, queen b3, rook e3, f3. This is clear. But I think what they both missed, that I think they thought that here black is winning after rook c6, because rook c2 and queen c1 and everything is threatening, right? And rook c3 is not an answer because of b4. But I think what they both missed is rook e8, king h7, and queen d3 check. White has this check, and queen d3, not king d3, obviously, because bishop f5 is winning the rook, but e d3. And after knight b4, it seems like it's still over, because rook c2 is coming and king d1, always bishop g4, and it's basically once the rook is getting to the second rank, it's over. But white has a3, rook c2 check. King d1 again, as I said, is running into bishop d4. Rook is hanging, knight is hanging, and we win the rook. Of course, he cannot get to d1, but he has king e3. Knight a2. Yeah, it's already maybe too much, but okay, this is hanging. Maybe knight c1, knight b3 is coming down. Bishop b7 takes, and after rook b1, white is actually better. Knight c1, knight d2, and white is better. White has a funny pawn structure, but the thing is, and the knight is stuck. We can't really get out. I'm not so sure how does he continue, but engine gave some pluses for white. And this was basically very straightforward line. I think this e d3 idea, knight b4 a3 was a line I think what Seirawan and also Karpov missed or misevaluated probably. Rook e3 was the only move which could save the game, but he played b3. What now? Think about the 3+1 rule. What was it? Once again.
Oh, the 3+1 rule?
Yes.
Improving the pieces, trading pieces, changing the pawn structure, and being prophylactic.
Yes, exactly. Which one should we use now? Pawn structure, probably. Who cares about the pawn structure once like
I guess
the opponent has a king on d2? We don't really care about the pawn structure. We made this very clear when we pushed b5 that we actually don't. We are Karpov, but sometimes, very rare occasions, we don't care about the pawn structure. Trading pieces. I mean,
it's hard.
It's hard
Here.
Being prophylactic. The whole game was basically being prophylactic, so there is nothing really serious to being prophylactic about. The whole game was basically being prophylactic. What were we like prophylactic about? The opponent's development.
Not trying to develop.
Yeah. There is one thing.
We need to get our pieces into the game, like on the queen side, for example. Probably the bishop on from c8. I think. I mean, also the knight probably.
The knight is already developed. But which is the piece which is on the board, but haven't done anything serious so far.
The A8 rook probably.
Yeah. How can we improve that?
Wait, is it like rook b8, rook b6?
Yes, rook b8, rook b6, rook c6, and the game is over.
Yeah.
The game is over because
wow.
the bishop cannot really develop, right, until this is hanging. E3 is not possible because the knight is hanging. So we have time. Actually, we have time. Funny, but we have time.
Wow.
What Karpov played first, basically I checked rook b8 is winning, is the same idea, rook b6, and at some point we'll push b4 and then rook c6, just to avoid the trade, like when the queen actually come back to c3 and blocking or preventing another rook getting to c6. Also c5 was pretty strong, by the way, just destroying his center, because his king is in the middle and we can actually put an extra pressure on this guy, and if he takes, we push d4 and we just, even d3. Sometimes I'm just talking about these type of positions. Look at this is also probably winning. Karpov played b4 first. In case of rook c1, now I think he would have played rook b8. I think this is typical Karpov because he just wanted to make sure that the queen is not getting back and like in any way. So this is what he does, and the game is basically over. Once we trade this, because which is the piece which keeps like white's position together? This rook stopped everything so far. So once we trade this guy off, and also the other rook joins on the c file, he is done because he has no defenders. The knight is not moving because this guy is hanging. The bishop is not moving because e2 is hanging. He can't push e3 because the knight is hanging. So basically, he doesn't have anything. These guys over here on e4 and e6 make sure that white is not going to develop his pieces at all. This is why after b4, Seirawan tried his best like hope with rook e3. Of course, queen b1, rook takes c6. Karpov gave a check on b2, king d1, and now this was actually, now we have a very, very, very important move, which was bishop takes c6. Of course, we're not taking with f takes c6 because then he has e6.
Yeah.
I mean, we need the bishop out. There is one guy funny, but we don't need at all, is the knight on a6. Because I mean, for us, funny, but there is no difference if the knight is on the board or not.
Yeah.
It's just it cannot really come anyway. Like b4 square is blocked. We can't use c5 square. We can't use c7 square. So why do we need this guy? We don't need this guy. I mean, his king is so naked. So we just take with bishop, and we need to have access to this square. That's very important. This is why we don't take with f takes a6. Queen takes a6. Probably give a check on a1. D2, queen c3 check, king d1. Now he went bishop f5. I assume he did these two checks because after bishop f5, he had access to queen c6 defending.
Yeah.
That was very important. That's why it was such a genius like checks. And now he went bishop f5. Of course, queen c2, queen c1 mate is threatening, so white played knight e1. And now what?
Yeah, I think we can still go with the same idea as before, like rook b8, rook b6.
Yes, exactly. This
rook
is what
c6
happened.
done.
Rook b8. Rook b8. This is what happened. Okay, I don't think that there is a difference between e3 or queen takes a7, because after rook b6 he will take on a7 anyway. So now Seirawan took on a7. Rook b6. And now I think the reason why he took on a7 first, because now he also had queen 8. Probably queen 8 was a better try. He played e3. Queen 8 was losing by queen a7. Queen takes d5. Check. King d2. Check. Now in case of king c1, queen a1, king d2, queen c3, king d1, and bishop e6. Queen e4 and g6, and bishop takes b3 is coming. And it's So after queen takes a2, king e3, rook e6 check, king f3, bishop e4, take everything, and queen a8. This is the key move. And d5, f5. That's actually this line is actually amazing. I'm not so sure how much did they see of this, but this is actually amazing. And now white cannot really, cannot avoid losing either this or this. So if he takes on f5, of course, queen takes d5, queen takes h1. In case of king d5 or king d4, we go queen a1, queen takes e1, and this is
queen a1,
obviously losing. So yeah, but Seirawan played e3. Of course, rook c6. This is why we went rook b6, rook c6, bishop c4. And now he just had to calculate a very straightforward line, which was queen a1, king e2, queen b2 check, king d1. Of course, king f3 was running into bishop e4, queen takes f2. Rook is joining in the 6th rank, so king d1. And now beautiful d takes c4, queen a8 check, king a7, queen c6, and after c3, Seirawan resigned. What a game! This is not like a typical Karpov game you can see, right? When Karpov is just playing b5, completely ignores the pawn structure, and he's just destroying the opponent. He's just actually mating the opponent. But the position required that, because Seirawan was not taking care of his development. So sometimes you have to just move out from your comfort zone and do what needs to be done.